All right. So again, like I said, my name's Kevin Stromberg. I'm the behavioral health professional here at the Carpenter Centers for Health. As I introduce you all to the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse Relationship Edition. One little caveat, though, as we go get into this, I like to just let the attendees and participants know that I do not provide couples therapy as a treatment modality as a clinician. I typically cover this information in individual sessions, and then encourage those to go on and talk with their partners, their spouses, fiancés, so on and so forth about these skills that are being learned and utilized this evening. So I will kind of bring that up again as we wrap up for this presentation. Again, just that reminder that unfortunately I do not provide couples therapy. That is something that we can definitely chat about in an individual appointment with myself to navigate how to get you set up with someone who would be appropriate for you. So as we get started, just kind of some basic information. Sharing can be anxiety provoking. For those of you, if you have questions or things, you can definitely go ahead and put that in the chat, and I will do my best to, one, monitor the chat, and then two, respond to questions as they come up. I'll also reserve some time at the end of the presentation for any questions that people might have, whether they put it in the chat, and go from there. So our objectives today. So what I'd like to be able to do is explain the concept of Dr. John and Julie Gottman's Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. I'll introduce everybody with a brief overview of who the Gottmans are, and kind of what they're known and famous for. Help participants understand and identify their own horsemen and the impact these have on their relationships, and then learn effective skills to remedy their horsemen to develop resilience within their relationships. So as I go over the horsemen, the way that it'll kind of flow is it'll be one of the horsemen followed by the remedy for that horseman, and at the end, we'll bring it all together again on some different ways that we can approach that. So with no further ado, who are the Gottmans, right? As a clinician, when I talk about this and introduce this to the clients, I like to just share some basic background information about the Gottmans and some things that if you were to look for a couples therapist, some things that you might want to look for in regards to their training. So the Gottmans, Dr. John and Julie Gottman, they've, for over 50 years, they've been researching thousands of couples. They're also a married couple themselves, and they have created some highly successful and empirical methods of couples therapy. So when we look at that successful empirical method, it's been researched, it's been studied, it's been validated. So there's a lot of kind of oomph to what they're doing. So I bring that up because if you are looking for a couples therapist, something to keep in mind is not all couples therapists will be trained in the Gottman methods. Many will be. They might be Gottman level 1 or level 2 trained. Just something to look for if you yourself are seeking out couples or marriage therapy is another way that we refer to that as well. So they co-founded the Gottman Institute in '96 as a place with their combined expertise to not only train other clinicians, but also help couples ensure the resources they have created. So for 30 years, they've had their Gottman Institute to help share and navigate. Their highly influential approach, as I mentioned, the Gottman method, is based on decades of observing thousands of couples by tracking everything from physiological responses to verbal communication in their famous Love Lab. So their Love Lab, long and short of it, is basically almost like a false living room that couples could come to. It was almost like an apartment as well, where some couples might be staying, and they would record and observe kind of everything without intervention before providing the intervention just to observe those couples. The Gottmans got to a point that they could accurately predict divorce and identify specific behaviors that keep couples together. My apologies, I forget the exact percentage that they come at with their ability to predict that of divorce. So the key concepts of the Gottman method: the sound relationship house. It's a framework outlining 9 key components of a healthy relationship, such as building love maps, turning towards one another, and creating shared meaning. All right. This is something that you would be working on with that couples or marriage therapist, especially if they're Gottman trained. What we're going to talk about today is those four horsemen of the apocalypse, four toxic communication styles that strongly predict divorce or relationship failure. Those four things are criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. And we're going to talk more about those in a little bit. And then the magic ratio. The finding that successful couples maintain a ratio of 5 positive interactions for every 1 negative interaction during that conflict, which we will also talk about more, as this does help to become a remedy for some of our horsemen. Okay? So why do relationships matter? Not only the relationships that we have with our partner, spouse, fiance, but also just with family members and friends. What's the big deal with relationships? Is often a question that kind of gets brought up to me, or especially those who might say, I don't really have any supports, or I don't really need supports. Well, here are some things about the importance and benefits of a healthy relationship. We have our physical benefits. These physical benefits include longer life. It increases our longevity. There's been lots of research and studies that have been done that indicate one of the keys to living a long, happy life is connection to others, forming that community, having those relationships. Having a healthy relationship can help improve our heart health, lower blood pressure. I probably drive my wife's blood pressure up a couple notches from time to time. I'm a pretty clumsy person. So when I am doing things around the house, especially on a ladder, unsupervised, it's probably bringing her blood pressure up. But overall, we look at these healthy relationships, that sense of connection tends to help improve our heart health. It allows for our immune system to respond quicker, so quicker healing and recovering from illness when we have that safe, secure, healthy relationship. Helps us develop healthier habits, right? We have an accountability partner. We have a motivator. So these become important, right? Because we have that trusted individual or individuals that we can go to. And when I talk about supports in those healthy relationships, it's also that recognition that within like that accountability and that motivator, that different supports can facilitate or fulfill different roles and needs for us. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more on our next slide, but it really is that recognition that we don't want to just put all of our support into one bucket, into one person, because unfortunately, supports often, if we have just one support, they're often not able to meet the varying needs that we have. Then we have the mental health benefits. When we are in that healthy relationship, we're going to have higher levels of self-confidence because we want that partner to share with us. We want our partner to let us know that they love us, that they find us attractive, that they're proud of us, that they're excited for us. It increases a sense of personal safety. Again, we're going to feel more safe and secure within that healthy relationship. Decreased frequency, intensity, and duration of anxiety and depressive symptoms, right? So when we feel safe and secure, we're going to see lower stress and cortisol levels. We're also going to see stronger emotional support. So these are some of those benefits of those healthy relationships. And again, it's expanding out and not just one relationship. Now, when we talk about these different horsemen, for example, we're often probably going to think of our spouse or our partner and things in that nature. That's a-okay. Like I said, these can be expanded out to some of our other relationships with family and friends. All right. Common relationship myths. Conflict equals a bad relationship. This is false. I hear this pretty regularly as a clinician, where people will say, well, me and my spouse never fight. I got bad news for you. A level of conflict can be healthy. Now, we don't want to have a highly conflictual relationship where we're fighting and arguing every day. However, disagreements are natural, right? We have disagreements just for that very reason. We don't agree with something our partner or another relationship or person that we have a relationship is saying. So we can have a healthy conflict to build a deeper understanding and improve intimacy, not just physical intimacy, but that mental intimacy, that closeness to our partner, or that closeness to a friend, to know that we can sit there and disagree and talk about something in depth and listen to those differing perspectives. The Beatles, I hate to break it to y'all, they had their song, Love Is All You Need. False. Love is all that is needed to sustain a bond. Unfortunately, having love and strong romantic feelings will automatically carry a couple through crisis, conflict, and or hardship, right? So we need more than that. We need to have our shared values, right? Do we align on those values? For example, hot take here, right? When you are parents, you tend to focus on your children, and you might not put as much stock, effort, or energy into your relationship with your spouse or partner. We need to flip that. We need to put the attention and focus into our spouse and partner. Our children will still be a priority, but it's okay that they are under that our relationship with our spouse and partner. Time and time again, I work with clients and they say, our kids are our number one priority. The challenge with that is eventually your kids are going to grow up and move out. 18 years, 20 years, 21 years, 25 years. Now you have this relationship that has been put on hold on the shelf for 18 plus years. A lot can change within that time frame. So we really want to make sure that we are working on that relationship, right? That we have that connection, that mutual respect, that teamwork, attention to one another. We want to have that connection. Your children are important, don't get me wrong. However, you still want to make sure you are making time to prioritize your relationship with your spouse or partner. Good relationships are effortless. We see it on social media. We see it in pop culture that having if you have to work for it, you must not be compatible. Relationships take work, maintenance, patience, intentional effort. My wife and I, we've been married for 16 years. We've been together for a little over 20 years. We have had our rocky patches. She has the blessing and curse of being married to a therapist. We still have to work on it. We work on it regularly because it's that recognition that it's not effortless. It does take work. It does get messy. As I was talking about earlier, your partner is the only relationship that you need. A true soulmate is all you need to fulfill your needs and support. Two individuals will complement each other rather than being the single person for personal fulfillment. We need to incorporate additional supports, friends, families, co-workers, therapists. That was a miss on my point on this slide. We can have our therapist as our supports as well, right? Again, I love my wife to pieces, but she can't be my only support. If I'm having an issue with her, I go to other friends or family members to kind of check in and basically do a litmus test of, am I the asshole? Sometimes I am, sometimes I'm not. But it's recognizing that. It's also recognizing what role and values your supports share. Who's the support that you can go to who's going to cheer you up and lift you up? Who's the support that you can go to who's really going to kind of hold you accountable until you cut the crap? Right? We recognize that. The last one, broken trust cannot be healed. A lot of times with relationships, we have deal breakers that if these things happen, we are not going to move forward with this relationship. We are going to end it. So broken trust cannot be healed. Once trust is broken, the relationship is also broken and permanently over. What we know is that mutual accountability, deep, honest work, seeking out professional support and guidance can help couples to rebuild trust, right? It's that recognition you don't have to go it alone. That is a good opportunity to seek out therapy, for example, individually and or with a marriage and family therapist, a couples therapist. The marriage and couples therapist, I use those terms interchangeably, as you may have noticed by now. But it's going to take work. Trust isn't going to be rebuilt overnight. The person who broke that trust is often feeling guilty and shamed, and the person who had their trust broken often is angry. We have to work through these emotions, guys. They're big, they're hard. Let's see if we can work through it. Not all is lost. We just have to be able to come back to it, right? To work on these things. So what are the four horsemen? As I go over these, I'll add in kind of anecdotal stories or things of that nature. It's also to recognize that when I talk about these things, I talk about what they are versus what they are not. Because some of these things, like criticism, for example, are going to come up in our day-to-day lives. It doesn't necessarily make it problematic, and I'll go over that. So as I go over these, I want you to think about, what are your horsemen? I want you to think about, if you're attending today because you believe that you might be having some challenges at home in your relationship with your spouse or partner, what might their horsemen be? Because we're going to have to navigate that, right? When I work with clients individually, that's what we talk about is as they recognize their horsemen, how can we remedy that? How can they help their partner? Change comes with ripples. As we make changes, we may impart indirect change on those that we are engaging with and encountering, right? So as I said, as I mentioned, think about what your horsemen are, or horsemen. You might only have one. There is one that's a really big biggie in here, and we'll go over that, okay? So why do these matter, right? They create relationship distress. When we have entered the apocalyptic phase or stage of the horsemen, they're causing a lot of distress, right? When we think about the way that the Bible describes the four horsemen of the apocalypse, it's just that. It's the end of times, it's the end of days. These can signal the end of a relationship if we are not able and willing to first recognize and acknowledge that these are going on, and then seek out assistance and or help. We can do some of these things without, professional assistance from someone such as myself. However, if we believe that these are escalating and there's more tension, again, seek out therapy. There's nothing wrong with therapy, guys. It doesn't mean you're crazy. It doesn't mean you're cuckoo. It doesn't mean you're losing it. You just need some additional support. Asking for help is okay. It creates that emotional disconnect, right? So we're looking at that distress, escalation and tension, and then emotional disconnect, right? For those of us who are in a newer relationship, right? So there are 5 stages that we believe encompass a relationship. The honeymoon phase, that's the fun times. That's the beginning of the relationship. Everyone's learning about each other. No one's farting in front of the other. We have really good manners, and it's exciting, it's fresh. But then we hit that kind of differences and struggle stage. What happens as we move into the differences and then the struggle stage, this is where people typically bow out. It's no longer fun and exciting. The work is starting to happen. We might see some of these horsemen start to appear. Then there's the repair stage or the commitment stage. This is where we are repairing that relationship as we continue to commit to that other. And then the last stage is enduring love. Again, these can be a little fluid. They're not necessarily going to be a ladder that we're climbing to get to the top. There's going to be some fluidity in it. This goes back to that idea, relationships take work, all right? We need more than love. Again, sorry, Beatles fans, love is all you need is not entirely accurate. First one, criticism. This is probably one of the more common horsemen that pops up. This is attacking your partner's personality or character, usually with the intent to make you right and your partner wrong. All right. So our goal here is character assassination. We don't want them to feel good. We want to tear them down, right? We're going to make generalizations. We're going to make statements. You always, you never, always and never are really big cues to me as a therapist when I hear folks talk about their relationships, that they're starting to make these generalized statements. You're the type of person who, why are you so, right? Think about times where we have either said phrases like this to our partner or to a friend, or that someone has said this to us. Criticism is not expressing a complaint specific to an issue or concern. Criticism, often what we are doing is when we're looking at that complaint, for example, we are identifying a behavior that is concerning or problematic, right? So that becomes that difference. Criticism, right? We use the word like to criticize, or people need to be open to critical feedback. When we are talking about criticism as it pertains to the four horsemen, we are talking about those character assassinations. We are going after the personality or a character. There is a difference between you're acting like an asshole and you are an asshole. We respond differently. When someone says you are acting like an asshole, that means that there are behaviors that I am engaging in that I need to change. But when you say you are an asshole, I view that as you are attacking my personality. I am going to become defensive. I am going to become argumentative, right? So, complaint versus a criticism. So, the situation, you're leaving work late and you arrive home 45 minutes late. Um, So that complaint, if we were to share this with our spouse, with our partner, with our friends, I was scared and upset when I hadn't heard from you. I thought something had happened to you. I thought we had agreed to let each other know when we are running late, right? So as we break this down, this encompasses a few things we'll talk in the remedy section for criticism next. This is using what we call I messages. We are identifying thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that we are having up here in our heads, and we are sharing that. We are also reaffirming. I thought that we had agreed to let each other know when we're running late, right? This was something that we agreed to do to keep each other on the same page, and yet we didn't do it. So we're saying, here's the complaint, and here's what I thought we agreed on, or what that possible remedy was. Criticism, same thing, leaving work late, arriving at home 45 minutes late. You never think about how your choices affect other people. You're selfish and only care about yourself. You never think of anyone else but yourself. You always do this to me. When you look at that complaint and you look at that criticism, the criticism comes with a lot of you language, comes with a lot of blame-based language. You never think about how your choices affect others. You're selfish and only care about yourself. You never, right? That generalization is coming back, just like at the start of it. Think about anyone but yourself. You always do this to me. So we hit it and end it with that. When someone hits us with a criticism, we tend to get defensive, right? We are backpedaling. We feel like we're trapped up against the wall, and we're going to respond accordingly. We're usually not going to respond and be open to that, because what is happening is we feel as if our character or a personality is being called into question or being assassinated, and not something that we can work on, right? So when we look at the remedy for criticism, right? Like I said, criticism is pretty common. We fall into this, and then we will say, I only say these things when I'm mad. Hogwash. Just because you are mad does not give you an excuse, guys. Well, we don't necessarily get to control our feelings. We're entitled to the full spectrum of our emotions. I know the touchy-feely stuff. We're entitled to all those things. We control our responses, right? Think about kids. You know, I'm the youngest of three. My brother would often say, I made him mad, so I made him hit me. I never once grabbed that dude's fist, grabbed his hand, balled it into a fist, and threw it across my face. He hit me willingly and willfully, right? Yes, he was mad. He chose to hit me, right? So it's outside of the scope of criticism here. We don't want to go into that physical realm, but this is just that recognition. You are responsible for your choices and actions, guys. We have to recognize that. So when we look at the remedy for criticism, we call it gentle startup. Again, avoid using you-based statements. This indicates blame. This is the verbal way of like wagging your finger in somebody's face. All right, so this is the equivalent of finger pointing. Use those I statements. I get it. They're cookie cutter. Oh, I feel angry when you're late. I would appreciate it if you could give me a call. We have to adapt these things to kind of fit our personality. With all these remedies, just understand these aren't going to be quick fixes. They're going to take time. If we look at the remedies as a coping skill, coping skills are designed to decrease intensity, frequency, and duration. They are not meant to be 100% effective, right? So when we look at these are going to take time. These are going to help decrease the challenges that we are facing within our relationships, right? We have to allow for that. Nobody changes overnight. Choose your metaphor. Rome wasn't built in a day. You can't sprint a marathon. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step, right? It's that recognition. This takes time. I statements help share our perspective. One of the common things, especially with criticisms, You should know. Again, hogwash. I'm not a mind reader. How the hell am I supposed to know? Use those I statements. Let those people know, your friends, your family, your partner, your spouse, let them know what's going on inside that head, because we can be looking at two things and be perceiving it differently. We want to share that because we have to remember they're not a mind reader. This is going to take some patience because we're going to have to share, and we're going to have to be aware of things like our vocal tone, our pacing, our body language. We've got to pay attention to those things. Right? This allows you to communicate what you're thinking, seeing, believing, and or feeling. Ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? What do I need? When we start to ask ourselves those questions, this allows us to communicate better what it is that we are thinking, feeling, seeing, believing. I'm a male therapist. For years, a lot of my work has been with other males who are coming to therapy at the request of their spouse or partner because they need to work on communicating and expressing themselves. We spend a lot of time in this gentle startup type of realm, helping them work on those I statements to share their perspective, to start to communicate it, right? So that criticism, you only talk or care about yourself. Why do you have to be so selfish all the time? The remedy for that statement, we're going to remove those you-based statements. I'm feeling left out and lonely, right? This is how they're feeling. This is how they're believing. This is how they're perceiving. I would like to talk about my day with you two. I struggle to proofread, apparently. Can I tell you about my day, right? So think about it. You come home from a long day. Think about my mother-in-law, for example. When I go to talk to my mother-in-law, she's always, oop, see, I said always. She has a tendency to fall into the category of she talks all about her day and everything that's going on. And then when you start to talk about your day, she has a comparative story and then it's 1,000 times worse, right? It gets really frustrating. So this is that example. So I'm feeling, that's communicating our perspective, which leads to the identification of our need. That next sentence, I would like. This allows you to ask to get your need fulfilled, right? So that's what we have to think about, is as we are working on this remedy with this gentle startup, and this can be universalized, not just for criticism, just with the way we engage with others. What we are doing is we are recognizing, hey, I'm seeing or experiencing this through this lens, and this is what I need. I often ask my clients early on in their therapy to work on identifying their needs. We live in a world where people tell us what we need all the time. When you go to work, this is what you need to do today. This is what time you need to show up. This is the time that you can leave, which is a little bit different than a need, but it's still that. We need you to be here for this project or this job, right? Take that step back and start working on identifying what your needs are so that way you can better communicate them. All right, so remember that, right? The use of I messages, the perspective, sharing your perspective. We call that gentle startup. Contempt. Last bullet point on this. Contempt is the greatest predictor of divorce. This is where we attack our partner's sense of self with the intention to assault or psychologically harm them, right? I'm going to repeat that. This is where we attack our partner's sense of self with the intention to insult or psychologically harm them. This takes criticism and puts it on steroids. Our goal is to disrespect our partner, to make them feel despised, worthless, and less than, right? We really have to be asking ourselves, one, if we are experiencing this, that's what this is. This is contempt, right? If we are doing this with our partner, we have to recognize that we have some serious work to do when it comes to contempt, right? So this includes insults and name calling. I'm a sarcastic person. I use sarcasm a lot within my personal relationships. I have to check myself when I am doing that because it becomes a real easy defense mechanism or a smokescreen where I can be like, oh, well, you just know I'm sarcastic. Bullshit. I have to manage and be aware of that. I control that. So that hostile humor or mockery, right? Again, this moves it beyond, where we do this on occasion and things like that, right? If we do it on occasion and we can repair it and work on it, we might not be at the level of contempt. But if this is something we are engaging in regularly, especially when we're getting into arguments or disagreements, huge red flag, guys. The body language, eye rolling, sneering, curling upper lips. Contempt is fueled by long, simmering negative thoughts about your partner, which come to a head when you feel attacked or accused, calling your value into question, right? We went from being backed into a corner with criticism, and now we're attacking. We are pouncing from that corner. As this says, it's long fueled negative thoughts about that partner or friend or relative or coworker or boss, right? This is where we try to meet might with might or fight might with might, right? This is not the approach we want to take. We have to be aware of those negative thoughts that we've been holding on to, right? They we really have to take that again, recognize that those negative thoughts that are calling as we're driving home, for example, from work, and we're thinking about our spouse or partner, right? Which goes into this example that we'll go into, and we're just, oh God, I can't stand them. Like they're worthless, they're lazy, they're this, they're that. We are going to bring that home with us. We really want to work on that, right? So again, contempt takes criticism into a different hemisphere. It's not only attacking the character, it puts you in a position of superiority over your partner. Power and control dynamics. This is often used to kind of control and manipulate our partner, or is being used to control or manipulate us. The example, you come home from work, your partner tells you they are tired after being with the kids all day. Stay-at-home parent versus working parent. We're seeing this more and more with the rising cost of childcare and things of that nature. You come home from a long day of work, you're tired, your stay-at-home partner just lets you know, like, hey, I'm tired. The response from the person engaging in contempt, you're tired? Really? Cry me a river. I've been out in the sun and heat all day while you've been home. What have you even been doing? The house is still a mess. Dinner isn't ready. The sink is full of dishes from yesterday. I walk in and you're on your phone. You're always on your phone, right? Think about this. This is, again, we are calling into question everything that our partner is trying to let them know. Our partner identified a need. They're tired. They've been with the kids all day, right? They're also just wanting to engage with you about their day. But we see this disagreement where we start to compare. My day was harder than yours because of X, Y, and Z. So therefore, your day of A, B, and C doesn't matter. I don't want to hear about it, right? So think about if this was you and you come home to your partner who, especially when we look at y'all in the trades as carpenters, you're typically out working in differing environments. Look at the weather today. If you were outside working on that, talk about, whew, intense with heavy rains and winds and tornado warnings. And you might have a spouse who works in an office or works from home, and we're just sitting, oh, must be so nice to be able to work from home, right? Those are those negative thoughts that are simmering. So when our partner lets us know, like, I'm exhausted, man, we hit them with my day was worse than yours because, right? That's comparison. We are saying our day was worse, right? The example I often use is if I drown in 3 feet of water and you drown in 6 feet of water and you want to go, we're dead, we're in the afterlife. And you're like, well, my drowning was worse. It was in 6 feet. No, we both drowned. End of story. Game over. But that's where that contempt starts to really fall into place, is we start to have a lot of that comparison. Remedy for contempt. Build a culture of appreciation and respect. I'm going to repeat that. Build a culture of appreciation and respect. This isn't we're going to do it once or twice. This is going to become a value. This is going to be something that we're going to actively work on at home, in the workplace. We are going to work on that culture of appreciation and respect. Contempt is destructive and defeating. It permeates relationships with long-lasting effects. There are long-term resentments. Again, number one predictor of a divorce per the Gottmans. When they observe contempt in a couple, they astronomically higher rates of divorce. So when we look at this building a culture of appreciation and respect, this is small things often. Regularly express appreciation, gratitude, affection, and respect. Gonna take work to just express that appreciation. Hey, thanks for taking such good care of the kids, right? Gratitude and appreciation, affection. I love you, care about you. You matter, right? Mutual respect, recognizing that that other person, whether it's spouse, partner, coworker, friend, boss, whoever, right? They have value, they have worth, and they matter. When we view people as less than, it's easier to fall in those power and control dynamics. Positive perspective. By doing the small things often, you create a positive perspective and an overall positive outlook. This buffers against negative thoughts and feelings. This isn't yippee skippy, everything is great. This is just our recognition that we can shift our focus of attention from all the negative crap and stuff to, can we identify those positive things, those gratitudes? Can we engage in a positive or gracious behavior, holding the door open for somebody? Um, Walking somebody to their car when it's late at night and there's no parking lights. These types of things, right? Do these small things often. We, we're not looking for big things here, guys. It's these little baby steps that we want to take to be able to do this. Again, if you're doing this in individual therapy, we would talk about that you are going to model these behaviors to help teach and educate your spouse, partner, friend, whomever about these things. Because again, if we engage in negative conversation or we just look at things negatively, that's all that person is going to expect from us. And that's the way that they're going to engage with us. The 5-to-1 magic ratio, like we talked about earlier, 5 positive interactions for every 1 negative interaction. This can be done in a couple different ways. This can be starting off when you talk about your day. Before you can talk about anything negative from your day, you have to identify 5 positives, or engage with your partner with 5 positive interactions. That emotional bank account, by maintaining that magic ratio, we're making those positive deposits into our emotional bank account, keeping our relationship in the green. Again, we're pouring in more positive than we are negative, right? When sometimes I work with parents, when they're working with their kids, we call it parenting through encouragement, right? It's relationships through encouragement. It's really looking at, we want to increase the ratio. We might refer to as catch them when they're good. There's a lot of different work around positive psychology that really talks and drives this home, which is where some of this kind of comes from. Our third is again, so that example, right? You forgot to load the dishwasher as you said you would, contempt. God, you're so lazy and unreliable. You can't even load the dishwasher. Why can't you ever follow through with everything? Cue the eye rolling, right? So again, we're calling the person out. We're going after their character. We're saying these things. We're probably going to throw in some not so nice names or maybe some, cussing and swearing. Remedy. Hey, I understand and see how busy you have been lately. Can you please try to remember to load the dishwashers on the days I get home late? I would really appreciate it. This goes back to those skills we were learning with criticism, right? It's those I messages. We're validating them. We're letting them know, hey, I see you're busy. You did make this commitment though, so I'd appreciate it. We're showing that appreciation, right? We might even throw, something to help reinforce that. If you need help, let me know. If you're feeling particularly stressed or busy, I got you, right? But you just need to communicate that to me. That is that idea. As we move into our third horseman, this is defensiveness. This is you seeing yourself as the victim and needing to ward off any perceived attacks. This is often a negative response to being criticized or when there's contempt. Defensiveness looks like we're making excuses. It's not my fault. I didn't do that. I didn't say that. Meeting a complaint with a complaint. You're saying that I don't do this. Well, you never do this. Very easy when we're getting defensive to hit complaint with a complaint. The example I use, my wife gets on me about putting the toilet seat down. My bad. I tend to forget. When she's like, oh, you need to do a better job putting the toilet seat down. I might fire off with, well, you need to do a better job of wiping up your toothpaste when you brush your teeth because it's all over the sink. So I'm not even acknowledging her complaint. I'm just immediately jumping into the issue that I have. Disagreeing, then cross complaining. That's not true. You're the one who does this. I did that because you did this, right? We're just cross complaining. It's meeting a complaint with a complaint. It's just dismissing. Yes, butting. Yes, I agree, but I no longer agree.